Welcome to Betting on Success, a podcast that dives into the future of gaming with a focus on cashless technology. Hosted by Mark Morton, aka Morty. From cashless innovations to incredible career stories, this is where gaming professionals stay ahead. Betting on Success is brought to you by your friends at Marker Tracks and Coin, leading the way in cashless gaming.
Hi, this is Mark Morton, and welcome to Betting on Success. A couple firsts tonight. First time we filmed this after dark, in your honor, Peter. First time I've actually had cowboy boots, again, in your honor. And so I am super excited to having one of the most dynamic individuals in our business as my guest tonight. So Peter, you are the Chief Revenue Officer of the Yuhaaviatam Band of San Manuel. Am I close? Help me again, Peter. Help me on this one.
It's the Chief Gaming Officer for the Yuhaaviatam of San Manuel Nation.
There you go. What he said. So, Peter, thank you so much for being here tonight. Couple things about you. We'll have a little fun tonight.
Okay.
This thing's all about you. We want you to kind of it's important, right? When somebody has such great success, we want to kind of understand how you got there. And I know the first biggest part of that, obviously, is going to be kind of your early years or your youth and your family. So tell me a little bit about that.
Thanks for having me on, Mark. It's truly an honor to be in the studio with you today.
Thank you.
Looking forward to the conversation and it being rodeo time in Las Vegas. That's sort of the reason for this getup.
You look good.
Everyone's wondering why this is happening. It's rodeo time. But I appreciate that. And so I was born on Guam. So that's really where it all started.
Okay.
I'm Chamorro, which is native to the island of Guam and the Marianas Islands around there. So I'm a native Chamorro, was born on Guam. My parents were in the civil service working for the Air Force at the time. And my mom said, hey, there's this opportunity to work at a Navy base in Southern California, and convinced my dad to apply for a transfer to the base with her. And so they both applied and they both got jobs in Southern California in Navy bases in Oxnard. So for the first 6 years of my life, I grew up in Guam. In our families, there's my grandfather on my father's side had land and property that he gave to his children and grandchildren and so on and so forth. And so we were living on our family plot of land in Guam until the age of 6 before we made the trek to Southern Cal. And then we moved to Southern California. So that's the early years of my life.
So brothers and sisters?
No, I'm an only child, and I'm adopted. So,
oh, really?
Yeah. So
okay, I didn't know that.
Another part of the story, some other time. I have 9 half brothers and sisters from, my birth mother and father, who were, 2 different families, right? So, but I was raised as an adopted child and an only child.
So let me ask you a question, because I've read this before. The most influential person in your life, you said, was your mother.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
Well, from an early age, she was a big influence on me. For example, when I was a baby, she told me that rather than reading children's stories, she would read newspaper articles to me, right?
Okay.
In the hopes that reading, adult, sort of stories about the news would somehow seep in and I'd pick up on it at an early age. I don't know if that actually worked or not, but
right.
Her theory was if she read the news to me instead of children's books, that it might give me a head start in life. So she was always thinking about the family and how she could help us progress and move forward. So I recognized that at an early age. And she also achieved quite a high rank for a civil service worker in the Navy. And I recalled as a child just hearing her coworkers talk about how she commands the office, and she was, really, even though she had a boss, sometimes the bosses would come to her for advice and guidance and things like that. So, I could see that part of my mom, and she was always pushing me. And even though I didn't like it, I think nobody likes being pushed by their parents at a young age, but she always told me, you got to strive for something better. You got to get good grades. You got to go to college. You got to go to school. You got to get a degree. She didn't push me in any one direction to study. She just knew that an education was important and that I should get the degree. She didn't finish college. She went to 1 year, and she told me she regretted not finishing and never had the opportunity to go back So she didn't want me to have those regrets and push me early on to go down the education path.
So I want to jump into this a little bit later, but since you've hit this right now, education is huge for you. I have two questions for you. Do you do it for yourself or your career? And why did you choose to get a legal degree with the position you're in today? I need to know both of those things.
Okay.
So
so there's, I think, three parts to this story, right? Part one is the undergrad.
right.
And I, to be honest, I felt like I was doing that for my parents, right? I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I knew I had to get this college degree because they had instilled it in me that I had to, and that was the path to success. But the truth of the matter was I really didn't know what I wanted to do. When I graduated from high school, my original plan was to be a sports like a trainer, like a Gary Vitti. If you're a Lakers fan, everyone out there, if you're a Lakers fan, you know Gary Vitti. He was like the guy who's the trainer for the Lakers. And growing up in Southern California in the 80s, the Lakers, the Dodgers, the Rams were there, but not really anything at the time. But the sports was a big deal in Southern California. So my original game plan coming out of high school was, wouldn't it be cool if I could work for a team and watch every game from the sidelines or the court side? And I thought being a sports trainer was that path. So that was sort of, okay, I'll do that. So when I graduated high school, and I'll come back, this is an important part of my story later, but my heart was set on UCLA.
I love
in
that.
undergrad. I mean, that was kind of like my target. I said, I want to go to UCLA. And my mom said, you better apply to other schools just in case. I'm like, no, Mom, I'm getting into UCLA. I'm going to UCLA. But as wise as she was, I said, okay. So I applied to UC Irvine, UC Santa Barbara, and Cal State Northridge. Well, of course, I get into every school except UCLA, right? So I was devastated. To say the least, I was devastated. And I said, okay, you know what? Northridge had a kinesiology program, which is the field of study that you would go to become a sports trainer. So I enrolled in Cal State Northridge, and my plan was to do that for 2 years and then transfer to UCLA. That was sort of my master plan. Get my undergrad, get all the requirements out front, all the basics, foundational classes, and then transfer to UCLA in kinesiology. So that was the plan.
Right.
Again, not really understanding if it was a passion or not. That was the plan. So I get to school, and freshman year, you're bouncing around, you're doing, classes and all that. I began to struggle in chemistry, right? So I was struggling really bad in chemistry. Hang on 1 second. I got to turn my phone off because it just made a noise, and I thought, I don't want this thing going off.
It says UCLA on it, too.
It does say, yeah.
I like that.
That one does say that. I'll get to that in a minute because the other one says USC. But
I won't hold that
there's
against you.
There's more to the story there. But going back to that, so I was struggling in chemistry, and my, the academic counselor, I walked into his office, says, I'm not doing well in chemistry. And he goes, okay. And he goes, you do know you need 4 semesters of chemistry to graduate in kinesiology. And I said, I do? And he goes, yeah, you need 101, 201, a 300 level class and a 400 level class in chemistry. And I said, but that's not really, and he goes, well, I don't know what to tell you.
Right.
And he goes, why do you want to be in kinesiology? And I told him what my aspirations was. I want to be a trainer for the Lakers, the Dodgers, maybe the Rams or whoever. And he said, is your name O'Malley, or is your name Buss,
right,
or is your name Sterling, or is your name Schott? Because these were the owners of those teams at the time.
Yeah.
I said, no. He goes, then the odds of you getting in and being a trainer with a degree from Northridge is 0. He said, if you wanted to do that path, the path you're doing, you should be at Pepperdine, you should be at UCLA, or you should be at USC or Loyola Marymount. I mean, one of the powerhouse, you'd have to come from a powerhouse school if you're not in the family. So that was that was demoralizing, right? So that's why I said in the beginning, I didn't go to school for myself. I did it for other reasons, but it forced me to look internally. And later on in life, when I went back for my MBA, it was at USC. And I did that out of spite to UCLA
Yeah,
because
yeah.
UCLA rejected me, but USC accepted me for the MBA program. I mean, UCLA rejected my undergrad
Right.
application, so I didn't even apply for my MBA. I said, I'm going to USC. I'm going to be a Trojan.
Screw those guys, right?
Yeah, screw the Bruins. I'm
Right.
gonna show them what's up. So I got my MBA for me, and I got it through USC. And then a couple of years ago, I went back for my master's in legal studies. But at that time, UCLA School of Law reached out and said, hey, would you be interested in this program? I go, oh, so UCLA finally comes around. So, after 30 years, the cycle comes back, and I ended up going to UCLA. And last year in 24, graduated with my master's in legal studies.
So you go to school, you think you want to get into sports, and then all of a sudden, how do you make a pivot into gaming, right? So that's a big leap. So how did you get to Vegas, and how did you make that pivot?
So that's an interesting one. So that meeting that I was talking about with my academic counselor.
Yeah.
So the immediate reaction, I left his office and I didn't even go to class that day. I went straight to my dorm room and I was kind of sulking, talking to my roommates, and I said, you know what, guys, I don't think school's for me. School's for me. I think I'm going to go enlist in the Air Force. And they said, what are you talking about? What the hell are you talking about? I go, I'm going to go enlist in the Air Force and be a fighter pilot. Since I can't be a sports trainer,
Right.
Top Gun, this is,
Yeah.
5 or 6 years after Top Gun was released. It was still on everyone's mind. I go,
Yeah.
I want to be like those guys. But I don't want to be on a ship because they go out to sea, and I don't know if I want to go out to sea for months at a time. So I'm going to go and enlist in the Air Force. So I called the Air Force recruiter. Now, mind you, this is during holiday break, Christmas break, freshman year. So the recruiter picks the phone up and says, hey, you know what? I'm about to walk out of the office today to go on Christmas vacation. I'll call you back in a couple of weeks. Is that okay? So he wrote my number down. I said, yeah, that's fine. So my intent was to enlist in the Air Force.
Yeah.
And I go home. So that happens. I go home that week for holiday break. Tell my mom asks, how's it going? I go, Mom, I'm going to go join the Air Force. She goes, what are you talking about? I said, well, I'm going to go be a pilot because I can't be a sports, trainer. She goes, you want to be a pilot? She goes, no, you can't give up on your education. So she got me actually a lunch with the admiral of the Navy base that she worked at. She goes, why don't you talk to the admiral? Let's go to lunch. So she went to lunch with the admiral, and he was talking to me, and he asked, why do you want to be a pilot? I said, I want to be like the guys on Top Gun. And he's shaking his head, and he goes,
Yeah.
those are Navy pilots in the movie, right? And you said you want to join the Air Force. I go, yeah, but I don't want to be stuck on a ship. And, he goes, it's not all that bad. So he's trying to convince me. No, my mom's giving him the evil eye. And he goes, but
Yeah.
let's get back to what we're talking about. So he says, well, there's some things you need to do. How's your math? I go, my math is great. He goes, okay. How's your, you look fit. I was 19 or 18 at the time. So, I was like, I actually was still fit back then. So he goes, I think you'll pass that. He goes, what about your eyesight? Are you 20/20? And I go, that's a good question. I don't know. So Mom calls back when you could call the family doctor direct and get in tomorrow, that kind of time. So she was able to get me an eye exam the next day. So the next day I walked into the family doctor and says, what's going on? She goes, he's thinking about being a fighter pilot, needs to know if he's 20/20 vision. So he tests my eyes. He goes, I don't know how to break this to you, but even though you can see fine right now, you have astigmatism, and over time you're going to begin your eyesight's going to begin to fail. So you're not 20/20. Okay, well now there's more devastating news.
Right.
Now my mom recognized, she could see that I was not, I was very unhappy. So she says, why don't we go on a weekend? Let's just go to Vegas for the weekend and just kind of get out of town and just kind of go to Vegas and have a good time. Okay, so my mom and I drive to Vegas, and on the drive we're talking, and she's like, well, why are you struggling in school? I'm not finding my passion.
Right.
And so I started to think about, well, what could make me happy? Now the UNLV had just won the national championship the year before I graduated high school. So I said, Vegas has a university. They have UNLV. I wonder what they have. Can we stop by the school when we get there, and I'll go pick up course catalog? So we did. We went by the old school. That's how you did it. There was no internet, none of that. You had to go get a thick book. So I got the big, thick book from the admissions office. We went back to the room over the weekend. I'm thumbing through it, and I found the hospitality hotel college. And I said, oh, I have this cousin. When I was 13 years old, I stayed with her for like a week on the island of Maui, and she was the general manager. This is in the mid-'80s now.
Right.
Mid-'80s woman, general manager at the Ka'anapali Beach Hotel on Maui. And I just remember being so impressed with my cousin, even though I was young, I was 13, but I was just so impressed with how she ran the property and the respect that she got and just the atmosphere that she created for guests. Now, again, at the time, it didn't make an impression on me, but years later when I was reflecting on should I go to school for hotel, a hotel administration degree, is this something that I could do? And I remembered that those memories came back. And I said, Mom, Cousin Laverne has a really good career and she's been able to succeed at a high level. Maybe I could do that. Maybe I could follow in her footsteps, not necessarily directly, but maybe I could do that. And there's a hotel on every continent except Antarctica. So, you can't really screw up the job. Right. There's jobs everywhere, right? And she goes, well, that's interesting. There's such a thing. And so I looked it up and we agreed, okay, I'll apply. We'll see what happens. So before the weekend was over, I went, got an application, filled it out, mailed it in. A few months later, I get back and I got in. But I decided that I would wait until I did 2 years at Northridge and then make a clean, get those undergrad or those
core classes.
Yeah, core classes. That's the word I was looking for. The core classes out of the way. I'll get the core classes out of the way. That way I can just focus on the things I need, the program at UNLV. And that second, so then after it became very clear to me that I wanted to do something fun with my education. That's where things changed for me, Mark. So I went back to Northridge. I immediately took a class in weather. I took a class in oceanography. I took a class in astronomy. I took an acting class for fun, just for fun, right? I'm like, hey, I have all these electives. I may as well have fun. What kind of courses do they offer here that they don't offer back in Nevada, right? They don't have oceanography in UNLV. They don't have weather at UNLV. They didn't have, the acting class at UNLV. Radio, TV, film, I took a class on that just for fun.
Yeah.
I go, you know what, I'm going to do that because they don't have it at UNLV. And that's when I first became aware that, I should be doing this for me because I did really well in those classes.
Right.
Like really, really well. I couldn't wait to go into the classroom and learn. And that's when I said, you know what? Learning is about being interested and having fun at what you do. And that was sort of the early stages of me figuring that out.
Yeah. And so you get into, you eventually find a way
to gaming.
To gaming. And not the most glamorous way through gaming initially, right? I love this story too.
Okay. Again, it's one of those classic Vegas stories. So I moved to Vegas. The coincidence here, is my very first job in Vegas. I was working as a front desk clerk at the Comfort Inn, which is right next door to Gary's Ellis Island and the Super 8, you know. So that was my first job. But a guy that I had worked with at that motel, he and I became roommates. We moved in together, saved money. And he was a little bit older than me, and he got lucky, and he got into the MGM, the green property.
Yeah.
So when it opened in '93, he was able to get in. So he got in the purchasing department. I think he worked in receiving at the time. So he was, receiving all the pallets and all that stuff. Well, a short time after opening, MGM decides they're going to open up dealing school, and dealers with no experience in the MGM Grand could apply to get into dealing school and become dealers at the MGM, which was absolutely unheard of on the Strip at that time.
No question.
So he gets the job. He gets picked. He goes to dealing school, gets the job. He comes home one weekend. It was during a Tyson fight. He comes home one weekend, a Friday of the Tyson fight, and he goes, hey, there's this guy from Australia, Kerry Packard, who came in. We all made $1,000 last night. Now, you got to remember, when you're 20 years old, $1,000 is a lot of money, like a lot of money.
It is a lot of money.
In 1993, 94. I go, you made $1,000? That was Friday. Saturday, I think he made like $2,000, and then Sunday he made like another $800. So for the week, he made like almost $4,000. And I'm sitting there going, oh my God, that is amazing. He goes, why don't you had to be 21 to be a dealer though. So I had to wait a year. He goes, just wait a year, go to dealing school. I'll see if I get you in. Now we're really stupid on this casino industry thing because it was so easy for him to get in. He just thought, oh yeah, just do that. And I'll talk to my bosses and they'll let you in. Well, of course that didn't happen,
Right.
But I did go to dealing school. We were all naive to think this was going to work. It didn't work. So I had to hit the pavement and go audition around town. And I ended up breaking in as a dealer at the El Dorado, which was owned by Boyd Gaming at the time in Henderson. So that was the beginning of my casino career, and that's how I became a dealer.
So I read something about stigmas, right? And
Yeah.
that you actually started after that. You were on the technical side, right? And that's really not where you want it. Tell me a little bit about that too, because I think that's super interesting.
Yeah, so I was with Boyd Gaming at the El Dorado, and I was lucky enough to get onto a corporate project. It was a tech project in the late 90s. I think it was 98. Bob Bogner was spearheading this project for Boyd, and I got selected to join that project team, which was heavy tech. So that's where I cut my teeth in technology and had a pretty good career doing that. But at some point during that time, again, I felt no passion, right? I did well in my job, but I didn't have the passion for my job. And I felt like something was missing. So the work I was doing in technology at the time centered around data warehousing and analytics and marketing, but from the analytical tech side of things. So that was my exposure to marketing, was through that project. Well, I found that I really enjoyed the marketing part of that equation more so than I did the technology side of the equation. So it entered my mind that maybe I should get into marketing. The problem is how,
Right.
right? I mean, so it's a great idea until you have to go do it, right?
Yeah.
So I'm like, how, at the time, I think I was in the business for 7 or 8 years. So, and I was like, well, how do I make the transition? Well, the problem was no one would even talk to you because they go, okay, you worked in the pit for 3 years and you worked 4 or 5 years in IT. Why are you applying for a marketing job again?
Right.
Like, we don't really understand this, how you make the leap to marketing. And so I got tagged as a really good IT guy. Like, oh, Peter, he's a great IT guy. Call Peter. He's really good at IT. He's really good at projects, IT related. And so I had that stigma, right? I mean, there was a stigma, and it was said to my face many times, like, you'll never get into marketing. You're an IT guy. You're going to have to, like, shed it somehow.
Right.
So I said, okay, I don't know how to do that. There's no playbook on how to do that. So I just started telling my story to as many people as would listen. Like, I want to be in marketing. Here's why. And would just share my ideas. And eventually caught the attention of a few people. A gentleman I used to work with at Boyd, he left Boyd to go work at Las Vegas Hilton when it was sold from Caesars to Colony Capital. And the CEO also came from Boyd. So Rudy Prieto went over as the CEO.
One of my favorite
from
people
Boyd,
of all time.
and he took some people from Boyd, and one of the people he took was a good friend of mine. And Rudy says, I need someone. Our VP of IT, Mark Garino, needs some help in marketing, in IT. You know of an IT guy? He goes, well, I know a guy. He's really good at IT, but he really wants to be in marketing. And Rudy goes, huh? He goes, no, Rudy, I'm telling you, this guy, he spoke up for me.
Yeah.
And he said, no, he's really good in IT. He'll do everything that you need him to do, but he wants a shot in marketing. You got to talk to him. So I spoke with Rudy, and Rudy says, I'll tell you what, partner, if you come over here, we need help transitioning off of Caesars into our systems. If you do a good job for me on those things, and you do a good job for Mark Garino, I'm going to give you your shot in marketing. I don't know when. It won't be immediately, but when a position opens and it fits you, you're in. I said, okay. I went and talked to Mark Garino. Mark Garino was in on it. The CFO agreed, said, okay. So I came over, and I left Boyd to join the Las Vegas Hilton in IT. Okay. Worked there for 2 years doing that. We actually not only transitioned the Las Vegas Hilton, but Colony also purchased Resorts East Chicago, or Harrah's East Chicago as part of that that transaction. They bought 2 properties from Caesars in Tunica and a couple properties in Atlantic City. So there's this package of properties, and Mark and I transitioned the systems from Harrah's East Chicago. So that was all part of the partner come over here and help us transition plan. And at the end of those projects, Rudy said, okay, the next shot in marketing is yours.
So
Right.
when I hear about your story, I think that you're a fighter, and you have. I mean, you don't let things, even though you have obstacles, you find a way around them to get where you want to be. How much is that kind of view on the, like your life, has it been impactful in getting to you where you are today?
It's a very, very big part of who I am. The worst thing you could do is tell me no.
Right.
Right. I mean, that throughout my entire life, if someone told me no, I dissect it. Why are they telling me no, and how do I get past that? And I felt like the no's that I would receive in my career were because of artificial roadblocks, whether it was just, the old way of thinking or perhaps preconceived notions about something. And so I would sit there and say, well, how do I not have people think of me as a tech-only guy?
Right.
And I faced the same thing, by the way. Once I got into marketing and I said I have aspirations to be a GM, people would laugh at me and go like, you're not going to do, at the time in the early 2000s,
Yes.
people were like, to be the property president of a property on the Strip, you had to either be a CFO or an attorney. I mean, let's be in that time period.
You're
I'm
right.
talking about 2000 to 2010. There was a whole slew. You came from the finance or the legal side. The early days came from operations, and it switched to finance and legal. We'll come back to the legal thing. That's when I first started thinking maybe I should go back and get a JD, was because I said I don't particularly want to be a CFO. There's no passion there.
Right.
But perhaps the legal route is the way up. So, this is the kind of mind that I had, is how do I get to where I need to be? How do I shake those preconceived notions that people have of me or my resume and break through it? And I decided that the MBA was important. So I said, okay, I'm not a CFO, but I can get an MBA. So I went and got my MBA in 2000. I graduated in 2011, but I made the decision in 2009. So in the throes of the economic downturn, when everyone was hunkering down, I said, I'm going to hustle. I'm going to go get my degree right now. This is the time, right? I said, this is the time. When everyone's doing this, I'm going to rise. And I went and sought the MBA. I picked USC for a reason. It was a top 10 school at the time in the MBA category. So I picked that, spent the extra money to travel back and forth from Vegas to Los Angeles because I felt it was that important. And so there were always ways to punch through what I perceived to be a roadblock. And that has been a common characteristic throughout my career.
Do you think a lot of time young people, people that get into our business, quit too early on their dreams?
I think, this is when people come to me and seek advice, what I tell them is this: don't be afraid to pivot and step sideways. And I think that's what you're getting at, is they're trying to go in a straight line up.
Yeah.
And then they give up on that dream because they're trying to go up in a straight line, or maybe, and sometimes you got to go sideways. A great idea of a great example of the sideways move was when I left Boyd from IT and went to another IT job.
Right.
I mean, that was literally a sidestep. And I trusted that the leaders that promised me the option to opportunity was going to deliver on that option, right? But I had to sidestep. If I didn't sidestep, there was no way they were going to give me that marketing job straight away. So I like to tell that part of my career story to them, because I go, sometimes you got to kind of step back, see the bigger picture for a moment, and that bigger picture may require you to sidestep. A great example that I like to use is Barry Sanders. You remember that guy?
Yeah.
He was one of the best running backs of all time.
Yeah.
But if you watch Barry run, he didn't always run straight.
No.
He would run straight, see, oh my God, the lane is closed. He would run backwards, sidestep, go around, and then beat everybody else, right? So that's the analogy I like to use. Sometimes you have to step back, step to the side, and go around what's blocking you to get to where you want to go. And so don't give up on your dreams. If you walk up, you see a roadblock, step back, look around, and your field of vision may reveal something bigger.
So I love that, because I've had a number of great leaders on here, and it's consistent with the way they view their career, that it wasn't that cookie cutter step toward, you've gone from trainer, fighter pilot, right, to chief revenue officer, right? So it's never a straight line. I want to talk to you a little bit about your current role.
Yes.
Because it's, having been in the business a long time, I saw where Sam Manuel started and to where Yaamava is today. When you think of chief revenue officer, a lot of times you think of just the performance of the properties. Your vision is much different for that group of individuals, right? I mean, you've got tasked with much more than just driving revenue at a property. The vision is much bigger. I'd love to know about that.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. And yeah, it's beyond just the financial numbers. A lot of what we do is we're trying to instill a different way of doing business, right?
Yeah.
So we all have table games, we all have slots, but it's kind of the way and the method in which we deliver that hospitality, that experience. And so oftentimes we do things that are different than what you'll find in other casinos because it's the right thing to do. And I think it all begins with the vision of the tribe, right? So they really value community.
Yeah.
They really value the community at large, but also the team member community. They always remind us that their team, they wouldn't be here without their team, and they remember those folks that were there during the bingo hall years, then the years where it expanded, and then the years when it really expanded, all the way up till now. We have a handful of people that are 40-year team members that have been there since day one. This is in 2006. We're going to celebrate our 40th year of the tribe having Yaamava and that property, and we're going to celebrate those 40-year folks. But the tribe never forgets that. And so my responsibility is not only to deliver the financial results, but to do it in a way, in a manner that the tribe can be proud of, that the team can be proud of, that's inclusive, that's developing the next wave of leaders, that is not going to be dependent on any singular person, such that if they were to retire or leave the organization, that the organization will collapse, right? It's to build that generational type way of thinking and business and strategy that can survive through the generations for the next generation and the next generation. It's really a different mindset.
Yeah.
And to instill that mindset into the new properties that come online is really a big part of what I do, right? It's not easy to wrap your head around, and you can't just write a piece of paper and go, here's how you do generational, business thinking. It's something you actively have to work and coach and give examples and help people kind of understand.
Yeah, you know what? Because I think about like Yaamava, in California, and as successful as that property, and obviously it's a beautiful property, but there's a different feel when you walk. It's different than you would think of a 7,500 slot machine, huge facility, right? And it has to be the people because anybody can have slot machines, anybody can have table, and they can all do that. But what you deliver to your people has to be the people that are there. It seems that's the secret sauce.
It is completely the secret sauce, and it begins with the tribe, and that's what's so beautiful about it, is they're highly engaged.
Yeah.
The tribe, they own the place, and they walk around, they talk to people, and they understand their story, and they remember their stories of their children. They watch their children grow. In some cases, we have multiple generations that work in the casino. A mother has been there for 30 plus years, and a daughter has been in the cage for 15 years, and now a grandchild is of age now and can work somewhere, and perhaps they're a server or a dealer or starting in the business, and the tribe encourages that sort of community engagement with their team, and it's then reflected back into the service provided. One of the comments I get, a lot of people go, how do you get your security officers to be so friendly?
Right.
And it's like, well, let's stop calling them security officer. I mean, they're there to serve guests as much as anyone else. Now, they have a particular job to keep us safe, but they take pride in being a friendly, smiling, open the elevators, help people get to where they want to go. It comes from the heart, and in the heart comes from the leaders who are the tribe, right? And the tribe always asks me, how's the team doing? how if there's a particular issue at the property, they understand if it's a financial problem, we're going to work on that. But more importantly is, how does the team feel and how are they working through it? And are we giving them the proper attention and training and support that they need to do their job to, address whatever issue it is that we're dealing with?
Well, so I've got two more questions for you, Peter, and then I'm going to let you get on.
Of course.
When I think about you, right, in your position with the property that you're at, the most profitable, I know a lot of people get mad at me when I said the most profitable property in the country, right? You've made a great rise through the ranks, but you're the same guy the first time I met. You haven't changed at all. I mean, the respect you show to others is evident. Tell me a little bit about your view on respect.
I think my family is well-grounded. My wife is well-grounded, right? She has told me, I don't want you to change. When she was with me before I started getting the promotions, we broke in together as dealers. That's where we first met. So she knew me when we were breaking in together. Now, we took different paths and eventually came back together again before we started dating. But as I started getting promoted, she always reminded me, don't change who you are, just because you're getting bigger jobs, bigger titles. My mom has always said that as well. And, she was born and raised in Hawaii, and I have a significant size family in Hawaii. And they're very grounded. I go back to Hawaii, I'm just cousin Peter. That's it, and I stay at their house, or, we barbecue at their house or whatever. And I think just reminding yourself where you come from and who you really are here. And I think matching it up with an organization like the Tribe, who cares so much about the community and the team, it makes it easy to be yourself and not put on, a front. I know some instances in my career where I wasn't in the corporate world, where sometimes it kind of felt like, like I got to act a certain way, otherwise I might be perceived as weak or maybe not as strong of a leader. I mean, there's just different pressures like that, but I don't feel that pressure today. I feel very comfortable being who I am, and I think part of the relationship building that I've been able to do over the years has been because the people who knew me 20 years ago say, hey, you're the same guy. You just have a cowboy hat on today.
Right. Exactly right. Okay, last question, sometimes difficult. If an individual had to think about Peter Arceo and they could describe you with one word or one thought,
okay,
how do you want them to think about you?
That is tough. If I had to pick one word, I would say fun.
Yeah.
I try not to take myself too seriously, and I'd like to have fun in what I do because I find passion in fun. I try to be positive and upbeat about things, so I would say either positive or fun, and I think that would be sort of the one word. You gave me one word, so it's fun or positive.
Yeah, it's a little bit tougher, right? But I will tell you this. You also said something about one more question. Sorry. Yeah. You said something about retirement, which leads you and links you to that statement. So.
Right. Yeah. So we were talking before the show started. We were talking about things, and the topic of retirement came up. And I don't think I'm going to retire until I stop having fun. Otherwise, what are we doing?
Exactly
right? I
mean,
time is limited. We can't escape time. So the time we have remaining, it's got to be quality. And the thing about it is this, Mark. I've spent time in my career also integrating my wife into my professional life, meaning I invite her to as many social events as I can. I include her in things as much as possible. She knows just as many of my industry contacts as I do. In some cases, she knows their spouses, and they have a separate friendship.
Yeah.
And so she's having fun with me.
Yeah.
Right. And so there's that. It's not just Peter having fun at work and then, the wife is out. And I think as long as we're both together having that feeling, I will work until that stops, because I find a lot of passion in what I do. And I wake up every morning and you can ask the people who work for me, their phones start lighting up with text messages because I wake up inspired for a variety of reasons, a variety of topics, but I wake up inspired. the day I wake up and I'm not inspired and I'm dragging and I don't feel like I'm contributing is probably the day I'm going to go, it's time to hang it up. And I hope that day never comes, but that'll be my trigger.
Yeah. Well, you inspired me.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being here tonight, Peter.
Thank you, Mark.
You know, very proud to have you on. You've done a phenomenal job, and I just want to thank you for the time.
Thank you.
All right. Everybody, have a great night. Thanks for staying with us a little bit longer. I think it was well worth the time. Thank you.
That's a wrap for this episode of Betting on Success. If you enjoyed the conversation, be sure to like, subscribe, and share. Stay tuned for more insights from gaming industry leaders. We'll see you next time.